This video, I'm going to show you why narcissistic people and sociopathic people don't get their karma in life. This video will show you why that is, and if you're around someone that's like this, I'm going to show you exactly what to do. Welcome back to another video. My name's Aaron and I help people expand their consciousness. Now in this video, I'm going to show you why narcissistic and sociopathic people don't get their karma, or at least why they don't appear to get their karma, and what you can do about that. And you may have, this question comes up a lot in the spiritual community as well. There's narcissistic people in the world that have certain agendas and that have things that are completely service to self and ego gratifying. And what I see happening in the world is so many people are waking up and starting to take their power back. They're starting to draw boundaries and say no to people that they've always said yes to. And they're starting to really take their power back in a very empowering way. Now, let me preface this video with talking a little bit about sociopathic and narcissistic people. This is a lot of times has to do with manipulation, has to do with people that will manipulate other people to get what they want. People that see themselves on a higher pedestal than anyone else and wants everyone else to conform to them. They are very much service to self type personalities. Now what service to self means is there's these two perspectives of service to others and service to self. Service to self is when it's very ego gratifying. A lot of times it's things that project their own agenda. And service to others is when you have a general awareness that we're all connected and you have an intention of adding value. These two concepts I get from the books called The Law of One, which has to do with a lot of esoteric but powerful information on spirituality. Now, let me also preface this video by explaining that I grew up with somebody that you could consider to be narcissistic and sociopathic. And for those of you that know my story, I'm going to talk a little bit about this just so you kind of see where I'm coming from and you also see how I navigated through this because I did have to deal with this. So first off, when it comes to this, my brother and I dealt with our ex-stepmom. So between the ages of 7 to 15 years old, you probably heard me talk about this story in my many other videos that I have. But between the ages of 7 to 15 years old, for me, my brother's 2.5 years younger than me. We had our dad and our mom divorced when I was like 5. And then my dad, a couple years later, met this lady. And she was, at first, it started off as like a normal type relationship. They were dating. And slowly but surely, then she moved in. And then we were going half and half. We were seeing our mom half the time, seeing our dad half the time. Slowly but surely, she started to gain control, the ex-stepmom. And at first it was very small. It was stuff that you'd be like, bro, that's nothing to worry about. The TVs got taken out of our room, our Nintendos got taken away because she said that she didn't have that when she was growing up. And then what happened is, my dad works 24-hour shifts because he's a firefighter. Not that you would know that, but he works 24-hour shifts because he's a firefighter. So he was home and then he would be gone 24 hours. He'd come back for 24 hours, gone 24 hours, and then he'd have like 6 days off every so often. However, as she was started to be trusted, my dad allowed her to be home with us, so we had to deal with her when we were young. Now, what eventually ended up happening is things started to escalate. So she started to gain more and more control. What happened was eventually she, in a way, brainwashed us to not want to go to our mom's house. She told us a whole bunch of very bad things about our mom, which were not true. And eventually what would happen is we would go to our mom's, we would come back from our moms and we would get punished and in a lot of trouble for things. Because when we went to our moms, we had a lot more freedom. So what happened was at my dad's house with my ex-stepmom, we weren't allowed to watch TV. We weren't allowed to have friends. We weren't allowed to do anything but really do house chores. And then what happened is I don't know how much later, but then she started to become very abusive. When she started to become more comfortable, she started becoming mentally, physically, and emotionally abusive. And she would hit us, there were times, I'll get into that, but in general, it was a very negative type experience. We weren't allowed to go to our mom's house, or if we did, we would come back, we'd get in a lot of trouble. And basically what happened is we would get pain when we went to our mom's and when we came back from our mom's, and she would justify it with pain and pleasure. Those were the two emotions that she was using to get us to be a certain way. Now, what eventually ended up happening is we moved into this other house. It was a bigger house, but it needed a lot of remodel work on it. And what happened is a lot of times during the day, my brother and I were locked outside. We would be doing chores, we'd be drinking water out of a hose, and we'd have a whole bunch of stuff that we had to get done every day. And when we were going to school, we had to earn going to school, and we had to earn school activities. I liked forensics debate. If I wanted to go to a tournament or if I got in trouble for something, I'd get that taken away from me. I'd have to earn going to band camp competitions. And that was the only thing that could really get taken away. It got to the point to where my brother and I were sleeping on these little mats that were like this thick of cushion, and we were sleeping on what is called the mother-in-law's quarters of this house. It was this little room with a gate, and we were given a bowl of cereal in the morning. We were giving, we'd have to have a milk that would last it'd have to last like a week, and we would barely be able to have milk in our cereal, and we were able to eat a TV dinner for dinner at night, and we were both very skinny. We were both I was like 110 pounds in my sophomore year of high school, and then 15 junior year of high school. That's when my dad divorced her. But nonetheless, there were times I had a black eye because she threw a sippy cup at me, and it was around Halloween. I had to pretend like that black eye was from the paint that wouldn't come off from Halloween or something like that. Anytime we would get hurt, she was very, very nice to us. She would be really nice because she wouldn't want us to say anything to anyone else. Now, the other thing is psychologically, anytime we wanted something, we'd have to pretend like we didn't want it in order to be able to do it. So for example, anything I wanted to do, she would tell me I had to do the opposite. And if I didn't want to do it, she'd tell me I'd have to do it. So for example, if I wanted to go to a band camp tournament, I would have to tell her or say something like, I don't want to go to this band camp tournament because I didn't really practice, blah, 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 and I just don't feel like going. She said, no, you're going to that band camp tournament. But if I were to say, I'm so excited to go to this band camp tournament, she goes, what do you mean you're going to this band camp tournament? You didn't do this outside the other day or something like that. And what she would do is she would manipulate and she would lie like crazy. I remember one time she said, if you don't admit that you did this thing that my brother and I didn't do, it was something like move a little laptop off of like this thing that was in the laundry room. She said, if you don't admit to it, then you're not going to you're not going to some school activity. And she said, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it in for forensics testing to see that your fingerprints are on it. It was some dumb stuff like that would happen all of the time. But she would use and manipulate and get people to see things the way that she believed, the way that she wanted to project herself. And on the surface, if you were to see her, she'd be the nicest person in the world. It was the craziest thing because we would go out and she'd pretend to be the best stepmom ever, the most loving, compassionate person ever, when on the inside of it, it was pure evil. And in the same way, my sisters, my half-sisters, that's their real mom. So at 15 years old, when it came around to where we didn't have to deal with her anymore, my half-sisters still have to deal with them. One of them is kind of very much influenced by her, so she's playing her game, and she had and then the other one, my youngest half-sister on my dad's side, she wants out of it, but it's very hard for her to do because when they go to court, guess what? She's the most loving mom in the world, and oh my goodness, and she'll cry and put on this whole show, when in actuality, she's trying to make everyone's life living hell. And to this day, she continues to try to make my dad's life hell. And on the surface, the reason I tell you all of this stuff, because she gets away with all of this. And I remember for years thinking, I know about karma. Why isn't she getting her karma? My dad is the nicest guy in the world. My dad does everything by the book. He tries to do everything right. And he is there. He's always trying to do everything, almost probably a little bit too much of people pleasing, trying to overcompensate. And in a way, adding too much, like trying to fix everything for everybody. So they've been divorced. She's been trying to make my dad's life living hell, which, with many different things. And my dad just is he's at the point now to where he's learned how to kind of distance himself from it. But nonetheless, she still tries very hard. And looking at it, you'd be like, he's such a nice guy. My dad's the nicest guy in the world. And he's an amazing dad. But then on the other side of it, you have this lady that's complete evil. on the surface, like understand as well, as I'm saying this, I'm expressing it, but we're all divine spiritual beings. It's just some people have forgotten this more than others. Some people are playing certain roles out. Now, why wouldn't her being sociopathic and having this type of attitude about people and trying to literally control people's life, why is she not getting her karma? And why isn't he getting his karma? Because he's being so good. Well, what I'm going to share with you, I know I had to put that long basis to this video so that you understood, but in general, the key to this process is understanding that the way karma works is there's energy dynamics in place, and until those energy dynamics change, the same roles continue to play out. So, you see, here's the thing. We look at this and say, why isn't she receiving her karma? Now, first off, I would also say that it might look like she's getting everything her way. And from her ego's point of view, the way, she probably was treated a similar way from her dad. That's why she's playing out the pattern. Just looking at it like that from point of view. Now, the thing is from a very small sliver point of view, we will assume that she's not getting her karma. But let me show you this. Let's say that this timeline right here represents her as a soul, okay? So right now, let's say that this is her life between, she's probably born in like 1972 or I don't know when she was born, something like that. Let's say she was born then, and let's say whatever, the present time, 2019. So between here and here, it seems like she's not receiving her karma. Now, first off, it probably isn't enjoyable to be in that low vibrational state of consciousness. It's a low vibrational state to make other people feel bad. I mean, there's two ways to get up in this world. One way is you actually do the personal growth and you grow yourself up. The other way is you tear down other people's work. It's like, how are you going to be the tallest building in the city? You can either build the biggest building or you could tear down all the other buildings. That's the way that she might go about it. Now, here's the thing. This is her life right now from 1972 to 2019. We say, oh, she's not getting her karma. Well, guess what? When she passes away in this life, think about this as a soul type level. Say that this is in the future. Say this is 2150, the year 2150. The energy dynamics will eventually have to balance. What you reap, what you sow, you do reap. So what happens is we're looking at it from this point of view, this timeline right now of 1972 to 2019. We're like, she hasn't gotten it here. But we're looking at it from a very small sliver. In the larger scheme of things, she will eventually have to pay back that karma. It's just the way that it works. Now, the reason it's not being paid back right now, because I'm going to share with you something that if you're experiencing this, I'm going to show you how to deflect this energy, how to not have it affect you. And this actually happened once, where I told my dad to do something. He did it, and it really does work. Now, first off, understand that we come into reality to play certain roles. Okay, so certain roles might be that I'm going to play the victim for a while. I believe that it was a soul contract when between 7 and 15 years old, being completely controlled. And I believe that led me to my spiritual awakening later on in life, because like, why did all this happen? And I had to go deeper within myself because there was a lot of emotional pain from that. Now, that I was able to transmute into positive energy. I was able to transmute it, and it made me stronger. Now, the thing is, though, is when we talk about this process, let's understand that we agreed at certain roles to play these roles out. My dad is the nicest guy in the world, but maybe something he needs to learn in life is boundaries. How to have more boundaries. Because there are many times that, for example, he'd go to court for something against her because they were always going to court against each other after divorce, and she would lie about so many different things. Under oath, just lie, like manipulative lie, like, how are you even making this stuff up? She would make up the most crazy things that were not true. And what would happen is my dad would go, and my dad wouldn't really defend himself because, he wouldn't really stand up for himself because he was more interested in doing the right thing, because my dad is a fire investigator and he's connected to the law. So he's like, I'm going to do the right thing. Not that he needs to do anything illegal, but the idea is to really stand up for yourself. And instead, he would almost like succumb to her stories of these lies, these manipulations that she would project onto him that just were completely not true. But the idea is that if she could just like speak out of turn and say things in front of a judge, maybe the judge would believe her because she's the little victim ex-wife that didn't get anything. You know what I mean? That's the way she would make it look, even though it's not true at all. But you see, the thing is he's still playing according to those roles. There's a certain story he might have about how crazy she is. He may be able to tell all of his friends at work about how crazy she is, even though you might look at it and be like, it is crazy. She's doing these really evil things. That's the way it is. However, that story is keeping that going over and over and over again. Now, the thing and the reason being that these energy dynamics are still in place, here's the key to this process, is he hasn't actually forgiven her. Part of it is he has to still deal with her. But he may not understand that if he were to forgive her and to completely let her go and just to forgive her and drop that story, the energy dynamics would change. I know it. The energy dynamics would change and her little world would start to crumble down. But you see, many people are still playing according to her frame of controlling everything and trying to manipulate things. So the key to this is changing the energy dynamic, and the key to releasing any karma whatsoever against anybody is forgiveness, which is hard to hear. You may have had narcissistic people in your life. You may have had sociopathic people in your life, and you're like, how can I forgive them? They did such evil things. And my ex-stepmom did very evil things, and that was the way that between 7 and 15 years old, I had no friends, wasn't allowed to, I had to learn how to be social in my sophomore, junior year of high school. Very interesting type experiences. However, the key to this is understanding the forgiveness. Even after my ex-stepmom, 15 years old, came around, certain story I had, I didn't feel worthy. I was able to have friends. I was able to, it was like Christmas Day every day. I was able to go eat the kind of food that I wanted, because we were real malnourished. All of a sudden I could eat food and be like, look healthy and stuff and have friends and all of these things. But eventually, I then got a job working at Nordstrom's in women's shoes. And the ironic thing is, first off, one of the first girlfriends I had a very similar energy dynamic to my ex-stepmom. She was very controlling, very manipulative. She was always jealous of everything I was doing. I broke up with her. Within 2 weeks of breaking up with her, I then go to and get transferred to a better department at Nordstrom's where I'm making more money in women's shoes to salon shoes. Salon shoes is designer shoes. The manager of that department was almost the same exact personality as my ex-stepmom. Now, this is the crazy thing. I learned meditation. We tried getting her fired, by the way, for the longest time, this manager, because she was doing the craziest things. She would say the craziest things, but she was protected by upper management. So we go to HR, we'd end up getting more punished if we said anything. Just like when we were with my dad and my ex-stepmom, if we were to tell my dad about it, we would get even more punished. So eventually we learned, okay, we don't want to say anything because when my dad's gone 24 hours the next day, we're going to have to be with her and we're going to experience the punishment. So you see, this was the key. When I started to observe my thoughts and I actually forgave her because I saw that she's just living from her level of consciousness, and I saw how that led me to a spiritual awakening as well, all the energy dynamic changed. That manager got fired within days of me having this realization. So whether that person is in your life, that sociopathic person, that narcissistic person is in your life, if you don't forgive them and do the inner work, you may find that they keep appearing in your life in many different ways. You might find that every boyfriend has a similar personality trait like that, or every girlfriend, or whatever it is. You see, the energy dynamics will be at place until you forgive. How do you forgive someone like this? Everyone is doing the best they can with where they are. They may just be in a deep, deep sleep. They may just be acting from lower states of consciousness, not remembering who they are, not remembering that they're actually powerful. They believe they aren't powerful, and the way that they become powerful is by taking other people's power. It literally is an energetic drain that they are doing. I look at my younger sister who's trying to get out of this situation because of how, I'm not trying to be negative and share all these things, but an example would be my little sister is 15 years old. What her mom did one time is she got in trouble for something, who knows what it was. Her mom takes her phone and then texts her friends funny, dumb pictures of her doing dumb stuff to embarrass her in front of her friends. And he'll text her friends pretending that it's her because that's she tried that. That's how you see what I mean. That's how evil that is. Imagine a 15-year-old girl, their parent or their mom is texting her other friends, pretending to be her, things that make her look like she's being dumb and she's being like very embarrassing. That's the kind of stuff that she does. Do you see? So the thing is, though, is the key to getting out of this kind of situation is actually forgiveness. Now, if my dad were to forgive her, the energy dynamics would then change. The energy dynamics would then change. For me, that meant that that manager that was in my department that was very, very similar to my ex-stepmom, she got fired within days of me going through this meditation, me having this level of realization, and me really forgiving her and seeing that in a way that led me to a spiritual awakening. Now, my guess is that if my dad were to truly forgive her and do the inner work and develop the boundaries, that energy dynamic would change. And this happened that one time I was telling you, this is what happened one time. The best response is no response. If you argue, you give someone to hook onto. If you don't argue, they have nothing to hook onto. One time, my dad was telling me how they were going to court, and but waiting outside the court office, she would just be saying things to try to get him to get triggered. And my dad's like nice guy in the world, but she would say things to try to trigger him. One time, I told my dad what to do, and he would normally argue with her. And they would argue, and it's like, the typical, I guess, way you see like divorced people like arguing. And what would happen though is one day I told my dad to go in. I said, do this. When she's arguing with you, have no expression on your face whatsoever. None. Just sit there like she's not even there. That's what happened. They're at this situation. She's saying things, trying to trigger him, saying things that aren't true, blah, blah, blah. He just sits there as if she's not even there. He said that she did that for like 2 minutes and then just completely left and just didn't talk to it, like it was done. Because there was nothing to feed onto. They can only play their game if you're feeding into it. And the best response is no response. And you may say, well, these people are in my life. These are people, what if this narcissistic person's my actual mom, which like my sister, that's her actual mom. Well, it's okay to still have boundaries. You are not obligated towards fixing them because there may be no fixing. You may need to let them learn. And sometimes the most compassionate thing you can do is draw a boundary, because then that makes them understand that they may have to do something about it. That may be the most compassionate thing to do. Now, in general, the things that I recommend you don't do is you don't feed into it, you don't give it energy, you don't keep that story going of this person acts this way over and over again, but understand that person's energy can only affect you if you let it affect you. That person's energy can only affect you if you let it affect you, and the more attention you spend on it, the more effect it has over you. Now, this is the thing. We all project energy out. And that energy goes out, and that might affect people. Right over here, you see the stick figure. We all have a physical body, an astral body, a mental body. There's different layers to us. Now, what happens is if somebody over here is sending energy towards this person might be trying to control them, might be sending them energy. It only hooks on if there's a level of hook and resonance. So if it hooks to the mental body has this strong charge of anger towards that person, then it can hook onto them. But if this person remains in their own power and raises their vibration, forgives, does the inner work, then this energy cannot tag onto this person. This energy can't hook them in. There's no energetic cord that can really hook in. But the key to this is forgiveness. I had to forgive my ex-stepmom. If my dad were to forgive her, which might be hard to do because there's so much evidence of the opposite, but if he were to forgive her and draw his boundaries, he would find that her little world would begin to crumble. And the thing to this is the energy dynamics are still in place where he is playing the nice guy and she's playing the predator, the one that's acting out those patterns. So there's the victim and the predator. The way that those change is the victim must gain the power and draw the boundary. When that happens, and so one of the ways that might happen is by just completely ignoring, having no response whatsoever, and then that person wouldn't be able to get in, take the energy. You see, but as long as we keep the story going that this person did all this, it's giving them the power. It's giving it away. But here's the key. Trust the process and don't worry about getting their karma. The more angry you get, the more you want them to get negative in their life, that stuff stays in your energy field. Even though it's about them. You may be saying, you deserve all this bad stuff, but that remains in your energetic field. And then you're going to attract yourself to more and more people that will reflect that energy dynamic back to you. So the key to this is healing. If there's one thing I can say that I think will help you transform this process, it's a process called Ho'oponopono. And what this process has to do with is understanding there really is no other. You see, you may believe you have a narcissistic person there or a sociopathic person that has power over you, that's able to manipulate these things. That story itself is projecting onto them a role that they're going to continue to play. But everything in reality is reflection. Ho'oponopono understands this process, and if you say these things, you clear out your own energetic field and make it stronger. You say these 4 statements. You say, please forgive me. You say, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. And you might say, what are you sorry for? They're the ones that are narcissists. You're saying, I'm sorry for viewing you less than the divine being that you are. You see, it's an energy dynamic type thing, because then the one thing you have the ability to control is your own energy field. I'm sorry, please forgive me for seeing you as some demonic beast. I'm sorry for seeing you that way. I know that you were maybe abused by your dad when you were a kid and you're playing out a role. Please forgive me. Forgiveness is the key to all healing. Forgive me for seeing you as that way. Because remember, everyone's just playing out a role. Everyone's playing out a role in their life, and there really is no other. That's why in the beginning I was talking about service to self, service to others. So the key to this is Ho'oponopono. It's so powerful. And if you don't know the scientific study on this, there was a doctor from Hawaii that went into a mental hospital, simply changed his perception of all these different mental patients that had mental illnesses. All he did was he never actually met them. He just went through their case files. He did Ho'oponopono on them, and on the image of them. He healed his image of them, and then they began to cure themselves. They began to go into remission and began to heal. He never actually even talked to them. He never actually even consulted with them. Which makes you think, what is reality? Reality is a reflection. There are certain roles being played, certain soul contracts you may have had to you to take your power back. The key though, if the irony is, that karma will come back to them when you change the energy dynamics. But some people let it go through their whole life without doing that. The key, forgive. Forgive them for what they do, for they know not what they do. Forgive them. They're just playing out a pattern they're unaware of. Forgive them because they don't know what they're doing. And as you forgive them, you heal yourself. You forgive yourself for putting yourself in that situation. The energy dynamics will change, and maybe it doesn't take future lifetime for her to cash out on that or for them to cash out on that. But the energy dynamic has to change. You have to take your power back. You have to draw the boundaries. So listen to that Ho'oponopono in the top of the description box below. It's the most powerful meditation I've ever created. Listen to the comments and see what is possible. People do it. You do it for 21 days. It will change your energetic field, and it will help you to heal your relationship to them. It'll help to change this energy dynamic. 21 days. It's in the top of the description box below. Other than that, if you like these more esoteric videos, these videos talking about energy dynamics and emotions like this, smash the like button. Let me know you like it. I'll do more videos on this. And other than that, as always, hope you enjoyed this video. Peace, much love, and namaste.